Welcome back to the Revive podcast. Today we're here with Isaac from BurnsOutBright. How you doing?
What? I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So, could you tell a little about yourself, everybody listening, where you come from and what you do?
All right. So I'm Isaac Stone. I'm originally from New England, and then I ended up here in South Carolina. It's where I've been for 20 years now. Um, yeah, I played in Burns Out Bright was like the main one.
Yeah, yeah.
I played in a band called Mainline. That was like a hardcore band. I was one of the many hired gun bass players for Stretch Armstrong.
Of course, of course.
And man, there's been a few other ones. There was a band called Perfect Yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we did. I don't know. There's probably a few in there I'm missing. But yeah, then most recently, and like active, the only active band I'm in right now is Vorov.
What is it?
Vorov, Vorov.
I have to check that out. I didn't even know that. All
Yeah,
right, so yeah.
it's with John Vale from Wretched and Peyton Costill from Demiser
Okay.
and and then Chase McGukin from Fraud, and he's also like a big recording engineer.
Oh, that's
That's
great,
us.
dude. That's what you need.
Yeah, yeah, it's been nice.
Yeah, man.
But our joke is that we're the world's most part-time band.
I mean,
Because
what do you guys? Yeah.
I'm an old man now, and I have kids. And
Yeah.
then I did the touring thing for a long time, and John did the touring thing for a long time, and in Wretched. And he's younger than me, but older than Peyton and Chase. And those guys are, they're young, they're hungry, they're doing it in other
Yeah.
bands. Most notably, Demiser. They're just blowing up. So yeah, so we just do it when we can. Every once in a while, if we can get on like a show we really like. So actually, next week, June 29th, we're playing with I Hate God at the Tavern.
Oh,
That'll be
I'll
fun.
be there. When's that? Yeah, I'll be there.
Next Thursday.
I'll be there. So I'm gonna get into this and I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. So I'm gonna ask you first what I ask everybody. Where'd you meet your band and what made you want to start a band with them? We'll go like the biggest one. So we'll go Burns Out Bright. We'll say where'd you meet members from Burns Out Bright and what made you want to, make a band with them?
So that band started. We didn't even have a name. Um, it was pretty much started. It was like an entirely different band
Mhm.
by this guy named Chris Chasty, who used to play in bands around here.
Yeah.
Like he did Hurt Reynolds. But So he started the band, and he started it with Forrest Montgomery, and it was just those two guys.
Yeah.
And then I met them. I don't even remember how we met. I mean, we were kids. We were like 19.
Oh,
Forrest
was
is a
it that
couple years.
young?
Yeah, Forrest was a couple years older than me, so I think he was
Yeah.
21 at the time. And so I knew Chris first, and he was like, "Hey, I need a bass player." So I went over to his house, and we all just kind of jammed around.
Yeah.
And he had a bunch of songs, and they were like real pop punk. Um, and so we were doing that, and then we found a drummer. Our drummer was Chris Shira, and he was like 15, barely 16, maybe at the time. And he put an ad in the local Free Times that said he was looking for a band, and his influences that he put down were like Corn and Limp Biscuit and
There's no way that
Nir,
would
Nir,
end up
Nir,
like
Nirvana, and the last one was Weezer, and we were all like, I mean, Nirvana and Weezer are kind of cool, I guess.
yeah.
So we
But
called him up, and
corn has nothing to do with Weezer and Nirvana. Like
yeah,
that's like completely different sides of the
yeah.
spectrum.
So like at the time, he was this real young kid, and he wasn't like part of the scene, so he was real into bands like whatever he could see on like MTV and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
um, so I had to call him, and it was his parents' landline number, and
Oh, really?
I had to talk to his parents. He was like, "Yeah, you're gonna have to talk to my dad."
And be like,
So
hey, can you pass the phone over?
yeah, yeah,
Oh
and
boy.
his dad wanted to make sure that we weren't gonna like feed him booze or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think
Um,
any parent, any, logical parent would, want to
yeah,
look out for him.
yeah, I
That's
wasn't mad about
hilarious.
it.
Yeah.
So then we started and we played a few shows with Chris. He was our singer and guitar player. And then he quit. Um, and I'm not really sure why. I don't know if he didn't like what we were doing or didn't get along with us. I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he quit and he joined Hurt Reynolds, and I was doing like backup vocals and playing bass. And so when we were like, what are we gonna do? Forrest and Chris just looked at me and were like, well, you're singing now.
Yeah, so I was gonna mention that. You have the only band that I've ever seen a bass player sing. Was
Really?
there yeah, I don't I mean, there's probably some, but I can't think off the top of my head like a bass player that's the singer. Was there
Come
was
on,
there
man.
like a
Geddy Lee from Rush.
Oh, okay, 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 okay.
Sting from the Police.
Did he
Um,
sing?
yeah, Sting. Did Sting sing? What are
No,
you
I mean,
talking
I no,
about?
I know, but I mean, did he actually play bass? I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. He
But
played
so was
bass.
there like a big reasoning behind that? Was there like a reason that they chose you over somebody else, would you say? What was the big decision
No,
for that?
they chose me because they didn't want to do it, and I was doing like backup vocals. And
Oh, so you just
honestly,
had to take the lead. Okay.
yeah, and honestly, I didn't want to.
Really?
Um, yeah, and for years, I was always like, we should get a singer.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think certainly on our earlier
No.
stuff, I'm pretty rough.
Yeah.
I got better. I don't know if I would ever think I got good, but
Yeah.
the early stuff is pretty pitchy.
Which one? So are you talking for Burns Out Bright?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, you've
Um,
got you've got two you've got an album and an EP. There's a 6-song EP, Distance and Darkness, and then 10-song album, Save Yourself a Lifetime.
yeah. Before that, we put out those were both on Deep Elm Records, and
Okay.
before that, we put out an EP on a local label called Butt Lettuce Records. Believe it or not.
Nice.
um, and that I think that had 6 tracks on it. I
Mhm.
think, um, and that's like the pretty much the earliest recording. There's a like a demo that we put out. I wouldn't even say we put it out.
Yeah.
We burned like 50 copies and sold them at like Vets Hall shows and stuff.
Yeah. So I will say that I understand that Save Yourself a Lifetime was a really difficult album for you guys to record, from what I heard.
Yeah.
Could you tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about that?
Um okay, so when we signed to Deep Elm,
Mhm.
we had the EP Distance and Darkness done. It was already
Yep.
done.
Okay.
So we hadn't done anything with it, but it was finished. And then we signed with Deep Elm, and they just kind of immediately put that out, pretty much as is.
Mhm.
Um, and then I want to say we started touring. We toured for about a year, I think, um, just kind of on that. And we were writing at the same time, um, the full length. And then it came time to figure out who was going to record it and produce it.
Mhm.
Um, and in that year of being on Deep Elm, we didn't have the best relationship with them.
Okay. Yeah.
um, we butted heads a lot. Um,
Right.
so I can't remember who they suggested. They suggested a couple of people,
Mhm.
and then somehow or other we found out that Matt Talbot from Hum recorded bands and produced albums, and so we were like, that's our dude because we're the
That's who you
biggest.
need. Yeah.
I mean, like all of us are ridiculous Hum fans.
Mhm.
So we ended up Deep Elm ended up locking him in, and he was wary of it. He had called a lot of people, like other producers and engineers, and they all said, "Don't work with Deep Elm. They're not going to pay you." Um,
Oh, okay.
and we didn't know this. Matt had done that research on his own. So we did, pre-production stuff at home and sent it to him, and emailed with him because he's in his studio is in Tolono, Illinois, which is kind of near
Oh, so
Champaign.
yeah, that's a drive.
Yeah. So we like booked a few shows on our way out there, and we spent a couple of weeks with him, and it was cool. uh, we spent too much time sort of like fanboying out over Matt Talbot.
Yeah.
There had always been some internal strife with BurnsOutBright anyway,
Mhm.
but we got it done, and we sent it to Deep Elm, and they were like, nah, you need to make changes. And then they weren't going to pay Matt Talbot to
Okay.
release the masters, so we as a band started doing like painting and construction gigs after our normal gig
Really?
hours. Yeah, and we raised the money to pay Matt Talbot out of our own pocket.
Look at
Um,
that.
and he released the masters, and we were just like, man, we're so sorry. And that's when he told us how he had all these uh problems with Deep Elm, and he'd heard that they don't pay, and so we just felt terrible, and we uh we did that. We paid it. We released the masters, and then we ended up finishing the record, kind of we reworking stuff with Drew LeClaire at the Jam Room Studio, and
Okay,
that
yeah.
that is the finished product. Like what was released on Deep Elm. That became Save Yourself a Lifetime,
Is
and we
this
didn't
when
even
you
have.
were what?
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, is this when you were in New England or is this when you were in South Carolina?
No, no, no. I was in South Carolina. I'd already moved down here.
Okay, yeah. So
Um,
what made you make the move from I I think you're from Maine, right?
yeah, I grew up in Maine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so what made you want to switch from Maine all the way down here?
Um, so I was kind of aimless.
Okay.
I lived in Vermont for a little while. I lived in Boston for a little while. My parents were in Maryland. I grew up in Maine with my parents and my dad. I'm a Navy brat. My dad got
Okay.
stationed in Maryland.
Mhm.
So then I moved down with them, and it was like the middle of nowhere, Southern Maryland. It's very, very pretty, but
Yeah.
sorry, my
Nothing.
daughter's making faces at me.
Oh no, you're good.
Um, but it's the middle of nowhere and it's very pretty, but I think I was 19 and just it was driving me crazy.
Yeah.
And I had met Chris Chastity. He was the one person I knew in Columbia, South Carolina. Actually, I think he lived in Irmo.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, I'll give that a shot. And
Really?
yeah, I mean that's sort of the short story.
And the rest was history.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I mean, I didn't know if I was gonna stay here, but I ended up meeting Hillary,
Yeah.
um, and we got married. I mean, well, we didn't get married right away, but we started dating, and eventually got engaged, and it was just
Yeah,
like now I'm here, man.
that's
Found
great.
me found me a Carolina girl.
And I take it that's been the life's been good. How are you really?
Yeah, man, things are great.
Yeah.
Taylor and I are great. We bought a house in the punk rock retirement community.
Yep.
So like a lot of the a lot
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
Stretch
yeah.
Armstrong guys are there. John from Wretched is there.
I
Um,
didn't know that.
the, yeah, he lives across the street from David. Um,
Really?
yeah, David from Stretch, and the McGuckins live right around the corner. The Wards live right down the street from John and David, so
Yeah.
that's why we call it the punk rock retirement community.
We won't say the name of the neighborhood, but I know we all know what you're talking about.
Yeah. You know, you've been there.
Oh yeah. So out of all the bands that you've played in, there you said there's four, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's more than that, but those are the ones I
Okay,
listed.
yeah. Which was your favorite to play in and tour with, go places with? Just which was your favorite to be in?
Man, that's tough. So,
Okay.
um, with BurnsOutBright, like, I mean, that band really we ran the Crucible more than once.
Yep.
So in a lot of ways, it made us closer. In a lot of ways, it broke us up. But that was ours that we
Mhm.
kind of built from the ground up, and seeing it grow was amazing, and I wouldn't change that for the world. But the coolest stuff I did with your dad and David and Stretch
Okay.
Armstrong.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of tough. I mean, I did that giant stadium tour with Stretch Armstrong, and
Yeah.
we played Red Rocks sold out, stuff like that. And it's
Yeah.
stuff I never thought I would do. Certainly not being in like punk, hardcore,
Right, right, right.
emo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So I'll say, so I've got a couple of questions on here that I actually did not show you that I was going to surprise
okay,
you with here.
all right,
2003 Honda Civic Tour.
mm-hmm.
David had just gotten married. Jeremy
That's right.
had moved to guitar, and
Mm-hmm.
you started playing bass. Could you
Yep.
tell me a little bit more about that?
It was terrifying.
Really?
Yeah. So
I would
when
have thought it would have been just like a like thumbs up, I'm ready. Like I'm excited for this.
I mean, when I remember your dad, Chris, from Stretch, called me,
Mhm.
um, and I don't even think I had his number. So I just answered like a
Oh,
random number,
hello, who
and
is this?
yeah, and it was like, hey, this is Chris from Stretch, and we knew them pretty well. We've been
Yeah,
doing
shows with them.
tours with them.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely regional stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but it was still kind of on the earlier side of. I mean, now I've known those guys for 20 years, but
Yeah,
um, and then well, I mean, when he asked me, I was immediately like, yeah, like it was I would have done it if it was the smallest tour Stretch ever did, but
yeah.
the fact that it was this massive tour with Newfound Glory and Good Charlotte and
Mhm.
MXPX. So I immediately said yes. And then when I got off the phone with him, that's when the dread set in, because I knew it was the biggest tour they had ever done. I didn't want to let them down. And then
A
I
lot of
realized
pressure.
it was like I had like a month, I think, to like learn all of their songs.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
yeah. And I don't know if you, at the time, those guys were just a machine. They always were just on point. So they didn't practice. They didn't rehearse like ever.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like ever. So they only rehearsed because I was going to be there. And I'm
Oh.
thinking so at the time Burns Out Bright, we had this storage shed down in the Sumter Street storage shed, and it was like
Mhm.
every band was down there. It was the coolest time in Columbia.
Yeah.
You'd go down there any night. There was all these bands. And so Burns Out Bright, we practiced 3 times a week for 2-3 hours a
Mhm.
clip. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, Stretch has got to do that because those guys are such a machine. And they're like, yeah, we don't really practice.
I
um,
will say, I will say for the people at home, they practice now. They've
yeah,
got
I
three shows
mean,
coming up. They practice now just because they haven't done it in so long, I think.
yeah, exactly. But at that time, they were full time. They were touring all the time. They didn't
Yeah.
need to rehearse. So I think,
Oh my.
I think, I think Chris told me, he was like, yeah, we're gonna get a couple practices in with you. And I'm thinking like, a couple, man, I need to be doing this every day.
Yeah.
So I would sit in my room with all the Stretch CDs like laid out. I had a set list that they had given me. Um and I would just like just religiously um so
Dedication.
it was, yeah, it was terrifying. I mean, I hope I did them justice. But
You sure
that
did,
was the
dude.
I mean, I went on to play with Stretch several times. They
Mhm.
took me to Europe, just all over the whole states. Like I did it a lot after that. but that was the biggest one. That was the first one. It was talk about getting shoved in the deep end, man. It was wild.
Yeah,
Um,
and speaking of Europe, so I got another one in here for you. On tour with Stretch Armstrong in Europe in Wangen, Germany, I think is how you say it. There
banging and wanging.
there was a promoter named Stefan.
Yeah,
Do you,
yeah,
do you
Stefan.
do you have any fond
Oh,
memories of Stefan?
okay, Chris. Um, Stefan was this dude. He was the nicest guy.
Okay. Yeah,
German
my
dude.
dad told me a little bit about it. He was like, ask
He
about that.
he had this like uh big bouffant hairstyle thing going on. Um,
The classic German
and
hairstyle.
he was just beaming the whole time. Just, I mean, if you were looking at him, he was just ear to ear grin. Um, but he anything like Chris would be like, "Hey, do you think the band could get a couple waters on the left and the right side of the stage?" And he would go, "Okay, Chris." And then he would go, "What was his other thing?" He would, "Yeah, okay, for sure. That's a no problem. That's a no problem, Chris." So I mean, we still do it to each other. I mean, David's gonna join us here in the beach in a couple of days, and I know that we're gonna say that to each other. We're gonna be like, "Okay, Chris, yeah, that's a no problem."
Because he mentioned that, and he's done that voice before, and I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? And he was like,
Yeah,
it's a long story,
that's
but
Stefan.
I'm
That's
glad
him.
I'm glad I know the story now because now I can do that to him, and
I
he'll.
think if if I'm, ooh, I just lost an earbud.
I know you're good.
If I'm not mistaken, that was the first show. We flew into Dusseldorf and we drove. Uh, we flew in. It was like the red eye.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what time we got to Germany, but it was wee hours of the morning, like 3 a.m. or something.
Mhm.
And we drove for a few hours to Wagnen, Germany.
Mhm.
Um, and then so we were just there all day. And then we stayed in a hostel, like a youth hostel, right there. And so we were with Stefan the whole day into the night. And it was just everything you said to him. Okay, Chris, yeah, for sure. That's a no problem. Yeah.
And how long was this tour?
So that one was, I think it was about, I think it was almost a month.
Okay.
Because so we flew into Dusseldorf and we did like a bunch of dates in mainland Europe, and we did Grow as Rock Fest. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Grow as Rock, which Stretch had done, I think at least once before, and then a couple of times after
Yeah.
without me. Um, so we did that, and it was mostly like Stretch headlining dates
Mhm.
in mainland Europe, and then we went to the UK and we spent, I think, like 10 days, and that was on tour with Story of the Year and Bleed the Dream, I
Okay.
think. Um, so I think it was like maybe like 26 days, something like that.
I was trying to think of what I was gonna say. I forgot what I was gonna say. Um, yeah, how long were you guys in Wangen? How long were you guys in Wangen?
Just the one day,
Oh,
but
and it was
yeah,
the one night where you met Stefan?
yeah, and so we flew to Dusseldorf and we got there at like 3 a.m. and I think we had a few hour drive to Wagnen. It
Mhm.
looks like wagon. It's spelled exactly like wagon, but I think they pronounce it Wagnen. Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
and then so we had the whole day to just kind of like goof around and be tourists, and
Yeah.
uh, everything was closed. So I think it was a Sunday. Um, but we did that, and then we played the show, and then after the show we went to this youth hostel and we hung out there, and there was like a bunch of kids from the show like at the youth hostel because they have like they serve beer and they have
Okay.
pool and like foosball's real big there. And so we hung out for a couple hours, um well, those in stretch that hang out. Your
Yeah.
dad is always early to bed, but I think he actually hung out that night.
Really?
I think so.
No, he'll dude, not even now. He doesn't like there's never a night where he's like out of the house past 8 p.m. unless he's like working a show. Like he is
Yeah.
strictly watching TV at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. He's in the rack. He's in the bed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's how it was touring with him. Like
Yeah.
we'd play a show, it didn't matter where, and then we'd get back to when I would tour with them, they were pretty regularly getting a hotel, just like one hotel room, and
Mhm.
we'd all like a couple of people on beds, a couple of people on the floor. But we'd get straight back to the hotel, and he would shower up and then be just out, like asleep
Really?
as soon as he could. Yeah,
Of course
and
he
like
would,
we'd
man.
like
Probably what
the
I get it from.
goofballs. Yeah, the goofballs like me, we'd stay up late. David would hang out a lot. Worm would always hang out.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah. Um, but yeah, it was good times.
What were the crowds like there in Germany or just Europe in general? Like, were they big or
Um,
bigger than you thought?
um, so the European leg of the tour, I think they were doing like between like 300 and 600 cap rooms.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes smaller, depending on where we were. If we were in a smaller town, it'd be a smaller venue. But
Yeah.
like Berlin was a bigger show. I can't remember the name of it was a beer garden that we played at. It had a venue and then like an outside, really exactly what you think of when you think like a German beer garden.
Hmm.
And That was a much bigger room. I think that was like 600-700 cap, but it was awesome. Everything,
Yeah.
uh, everyone was so stoked. Uh, you know, for I mean, Stretch Armstrong, they were a big band. They were killer, but also just a band coming from America. They treat then in the mainland Europe, they treat bands so much better than the UK, and the UK treats them better than the US. The US is terrible in comparison.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, like we would get to a venue and they would have this huge spread for like just for load-in. We're loading our gear in. They like cheese and meats and foods and drinks and
That's
all
just
that
the
stuff.
Europe. That's the Europe way.
And that's just for load-in. And then they would
Yeah.
tell us, like the green rooms would be nice. A lot of times the green rooms have like bunks in them so the band can sleep there for free.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then they would tell us like, "Hey, we're gonna serve you dinner at 6 p.m." and it would be like a real dinner, not just like a couple of pizzas.
Yeah.
And
5-course steak dinner.
I mean, not like that, but
I
coming
know.
from the
Yeah,
United
yeah, yeah.
States where it's like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches,
It's
you
good.
know, yeah, like a
Yeah.
home cooked meal basically. It was great.
Oh man. Let's see here. We'll go. Where was your favorite place to play a show? Is there any in particular that you've played that have stuck out to you that like you'd always I want to go back there?
Um, Man, that's a thinker. Um, I mean, there's always home base. Like the New Brooklyn Tavern was
Right.
always home. Um, that was cool. I always really liked the Music Farm in Charleston.
Yep. Dad
Um,
does shows there's a lot.
yeah, I think like that room always sounded really good on stage.
Okay, yeah.
Which was rare for me. Um, because we would always play. I mean, we Burns Out Bright, especially like we played like a lot of Vets Hall
Yep.
situation, that kind of stuff. Um, so it was cool when we went to the Music Farm. They
Hmm.
just, I don't know. I always felt like their monitors were dialed in. So that was cool. There was, I can't remember. I want to say it was called like Cave 13 or Cave 19, or it was in Des Moines, Iowa. That was a really cool room that Burns Out Bright only ever played once, and I'd wished
Yeah.
that we went back. That was a cool room, and it was a cool. I'd never been to Des Moines, and it was just it surprised me. Like, oh, this is Iowa. Like, I just thought farmland and nothing cool, but Des Moines is actually a pretty cool city.
It's in Iowa.
Yeah, Des Moines, Iowa.
I don't
I
think
think
I've
it's the
ever heard of
capital.
that.
It
Is
looks
it?
like yeah, it looks like Des Moines, right? John? What? Des Moines, how do you spell it? DES space MOINES. Des Moines,
Oh yeah.
Iowa. Yeah, yeah.
DES and then space
Mhm.
MOINES. Okay.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's French. Like croissant.
Oh yeah. Um, let me see. I don't see anything about it. Yeah, we'll 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 forget about that.
Okay.
um, who was your favorite band to play with? That you had played with? Who was your favorite band to play with?
I mean, if we're excluding Stretch, because those were the homies and they did so much
Mhm.
for us. Um, they took us out on the road. They were amazing. But if we're excluding Stretch, um, man, that's a toss up. We did a lot with Evergreen Terrace, and those guys were a
Okay.
riot. We just
Yeah.
love those dudes. And we did a tour. I think we did two tours. Oh yeah, you're right. We did a tour with Bear versus Shark,
Okay.
and then I think we did like a mini tour after that. We did a big tour, yeah, with Evergreen Terrace and Stretch. But that's how we got to know Bear versus Shark, and then we would like trade shows with them. They're from Detroit, and those guys, they were like nothing I'd ever seen. Um,
Hmm.
we were so used to playing with like hardcore and metalcore bands, which was a weird thing that happened to BurnsOutBright.
Yeah.
I feel like we were a band that other bands liked.
Not
um,
hardcore though.
no, not at all. So we would always be on these weird tours. Like we did a lot with Between the Beard and Me. Um,
Mhm.
and those guys are absolute sweethearts. And just I mean, if everybody knows who they are, and they are next level, like they're
Yeah.
on another planet. Um, but Bear versus Shark, those guys we really got along with. I really love those guys. I was really sad when they stopped being a band. But they were just like they didn't sound like anybody to me. Maybe there were other bands out there, but not to my knowledge. They were just this new sound, and they didn't look like anything. That we're talking early 2000s, mid 2000s, and everyone's got the scare hair and the ripping tight clothes and like eyeliner, and everything's black and
That
pink,
was the
and
way to go then too, wasn't it?
yeah. And we didn't do that. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
but every band did. Every band kind of like looked the same. And then these guys showed up, and they're wearing like cardigans and like thrift store tees and like baggy jeans and like loafers. Um, and they just didn't look like anything I'd seen. And they were like super into D&D and like,
Oh, really?
yeah, like they were just not like it in that time. It just seemed like everyone was so desperate to be cool, to
Yep.
like look the part, act the part,
Of
just
course.
be
Yeah.
these like emo-ish, mosh kids wearing like ridiculously tight clothes.
That
And
didn't
then
look good.
this band, I could never pull it off, and I lost my hair really young, so I gave up on being cool when I was like 24.
Yeah.
Um, but they were just so different, and then we got to know them, and they were hilarious, and their music's amazing. And they put on, if you were lucky enough to see Bear versus Shark, they put on the wildest show. It was like watching the Who in the 70s, like
Yeah.
just smashing stuff, like going absolutely crazy. And they were in the moment, and they brought the whole crowd with them, and it was cool.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
I gotta say Bear versus Shark.
Okay. And then following off that, who's your dream band to play with?
I gotta go Hum. That's my favorite band of all time. Or it would be a tie between Hum and Texas Is the Reason. Those are my two
I've
favorite
heard of
bands.
Home. I haven't heard of Texas is the reason though.
Man, I love that band.
Really?
They did a
What
they
is it
did a
hardcore?
reunion. No, a lot of those guys, I think, if I remember correctly, came from hardcore bands. But we're
Oh
talking
yeah.
early 90s hardcore
Mhm.
bands, and then mid 90s or mid late 90s is when Texas is the Reason started, and then they broke up and I never got to see them, but they
Yeah.
did one reunion tour that I know of, and me and Jimmy and Cindy and Hillary, we were there too, the McGuckins, um we went to Atlanta to see them play, and it was cool. It was like it was a
Yeah.
religious experience for me.
That's great.
um, but
And
yeah.
so with all of your bands that you've played in, the first one you ever played in was Burns Outright.
Yeah, well, I mean, it
That was
wasn't
your
the first. That was the first like real band I played in. Yeah.
okay. So what did family think about this? Like your mom and dad, your grandparents, your siblings, like what were their opinions on it? Did they support it, not support it?
So, my immediate family, were incredibly supportive.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
my mom and dad, I was really blessed to have just a great mom and dad. And my dad spent like 24 years in the Navy. But when he was a kid, he wanted to be in a band, and I think he like roadied for his friend's band. And
Mhm.
my dad is a huge part of the reason why I ever started playing music.
Oh, really?
So he just thought it was the coolest thing. They would travel to see us play. They were always really supportive when I was just dead broke. They would always help me out with money.
Good,
Um,
dude. Yeah.
yeah. So that was great. And then my sister thought it was cool. Um, I don't know about the extended family,
Mhm.
but the ones that really mattered were really super supportive. So,
Good, dude. Yeah. And and what did they ever come to any shows or anything, or were they just kind of in the back seat?
oh yeah, oh yeah, they came to every show they could. They would
Really?
travel. Yeah, my parents were in Maryland for most of the time that I was doing bands. They would drive to South Carolina to see us play a show.
Yeah.
So it's like a 9 hour clip for them. If we were anywhere, if we were within 4 hours of them, they were driving to see us play. Um,
Really?
yeah, yeah, it was cool.
So with all the music that you make now, you had a band called Mainline, and you
Yep,
guys played back in October in New Brooklyn.
yep.
And I remember being there and I heard you guys have a cover of Bad Reputation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We did
Was
that just for that one show.
Oh, that was you just planned that out for that show?
Well, yeah, we did a couple of covers that night. We did Bad Reputation, and then, oh man, it escapes me the other one that we did. But we had one locked in, the other one that I can't remember. The other guys were like,
Yeah.
we're doing this. And they wanted to do one more, and we were kind of just tossing around ideas. And my daughter is a huge Joan Jett fan. So I got in the car,
Oh,
and like Spotify was just clicked on, and it was playing whatever I'd listened to last with my daughter, and it was Bad Reputation. So I drove to
oh,
practice listening to it, and when I pulled up, the song ended, and I got out, and the guys were standing out there. I was like, you know what?
let's do
This would
this.
be Yeah, this would be a badass thing to do.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
So when do you think you will introduce the music to your kids? Do they already does because you have a daughter, you have a
So
son.
yeah, my son's too young.
Yeah, right.
He's a baby, but Imogen, I've showed her. She's really into like dance music, pop music.
Yeah, I've seen
So
her
she has,
dance.
yeah, yeah, she has little interest in what I'm doing right now. So I try, and that mainline show, I actually asked her. It was hilarious. I said, "Hey, do you want to watch Dada play a show?
Mhm.
And we're even going to do a Joan Jett song, and you can come and hang out." And
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. She was coloring, and she looked up and went, "No."
And went back right to coloring.
Yeah.
Oh
Um,
boy,
so this other show that we have coming up,
devastating.
I asked her, but I really gave her. I was like, I think it'd be really cool if you came. I think it'd be fun. There'd be lots of people there. There's going to be people moshing and stage diving.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, okay. but I don't know if I can work it out to where she can be there because
Yeah.
I'll have to be on stage. I can't like be with her. I mean, she's
Yeah.
6 going on 7. So
Is your
if she
wife
can
on
make
board
it,
with it?
yeah. I mean, if she can be safe, but that'll be
Yeah.
it's an I Hate God is headlining, so it'll be a big show. Lots of people.
Oh,
Yeah. Um,
yeah, man.
Abacus is playing, we're playing, and then I know there's a fourth band, and I'm terrible because I can't remember who it is. Um, but that comes with being old and having kids.
Yeah. And so, um, I understand that you did a lot of traveling as a kid, and there was a lot going on from what I heard. Could you tell me a little bit about this for what you feel comfortable telling me?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I got real sick,
Yeah.
um, and because of that, I got the opportunity to travel.
Yeah.
Um, and that was kind of like that was my wish,
Hmm.
to hint at what was going on. But the yeah, I got to go all around Europe. I went to Egypt for a little bit,
Yeah.
and it was cool. It was wild, and that I think the stretch guys knew a little bit.
Mhm.
Maybe they'd heard when they took me to Europe, and we were in the UK, and I saw a sign for Stonehenge, and it was like 87 kilometers or something. And I was like, oh, Stonehenge, and we're all in the van talking about it, and our driver Martin was like, guys, we don't have time to do that. We don't have time to do that. I was like, oh well, And Chris was like, yeah, we've all been. Like, I'd love to take. Glenn was with us, and he'd never
Oh,
been to the UK. Yeah. He's like, man, I'd love for you guys to go, but I don't really think we're going to have time. And I was like, oh, I've been. And your dad was like, wait, what? And I was like, great paninis. And it blew his mind because he was like, man, those are great paninis. It was right in front of Stonehenge for years. I don't know if it's still there, but they have like a little uh, sandwich shop, and they have paninis, and they're amazing. They're
really?
shockingly good. Yeah.
I told him about that because you texted me about that last night when we were talking about this, and I told him what you said, and he just started bursting out laughing. He thought that was the funniest thing.
Yeah.
And do you have any like, crazy stories about it or just anything that was like mind blowing about it?
When I would travel before when I was younger,
Yeah.
yeah, I man, there's a lot. I was there for a long time. So
Yeah. Just
let
I
me let
mean,
me
nothing, you don't have to say anything you don't want to, but just I was just
I
curious.
so when I was in Egypt, they don't have um they or at the time, like a milk carton where you fold the top and kind of push it
Yeah,
out,
yeah, yeah.
to pour
I
it.
know what you mean.
So they do like a milk carton, right? But they don't have that on the top. It's just like a rectangle, right?
Just a
Um,
box.
yeah, and then they tucked on the side is a little razor blade, and you cut the corner, right? And you like squeeze the sides, and it like opens the top. When you squeeze the sides and you pour the milk out that way. I cut my finger. um I'm
Mm.
sure you can't see it. It's on this finger actually. I cut my finger on the razor blade, um and had to go to like a local physician because I needed stitches, and they told me, they were like, you need 3 stitches. So he gave me a shot of Novocaine to
Mhm.
numb up my finger. So he gave me the shot, and from my knuckles down towards my wrist went numb, but
Oof.
not my finger. And he started with a stitch, and I was like, ow. And he said, oh, I'll give you another shot of Novocaine. So he gave me another shot. And then so my knuckles down to my wrist were numb. He gave me the next shot. And from my wrist down to my elbow went numb. And he started in again. And he got about halfway through the next stitch. And I was like, this really hurts. And he's like, I'll give you another shot. And I was like, no, I think I'm tapping out here because I was worried he was going to give me another shot and it was going to like numb my heart. So I just bailed on the whole thing, and I had 1.5 stitches in a finger that should have had 3, and it got seriously infected, and that was the end of my time
Oh
overseas
my
because I
gosh.
had to go back to take care of this gnarly infection.
Well, with Egypt, it's not like America where you can just run to the ER, run to the doctor. It was it like just out of the way, so far out of the way?
No, it was, I don't know what it was. I mean, I feel like it could have very well happened anywhere. Like, I don't know, the dude like hit a blood vessel or something, and but I
Mm,
was just, there was a language barrier. I was uncomfortable. Um, and so I just like wrapped it up. I had them wrap it up, but it was supposed to get stitches, but it got crazy infected. And
mm.
because of my illness, it was worrisome. Um, so they were like, "Dude, you need to go somewhere that has proper medical care."
There's just no medical care anywhere other than that
uh
terrible,
no, I mean,
trashy place.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't terrible or trashy. It was a weird time. I think it was mostly just what I had access to with language barrier and
Mhm.
um, money, and it was just wild. But I was also, there was complications because I was so sick um, before I ever went. Um, but yeah, that's one of the better stories, I think.
Yeah. Um,
um,
I'll say I'm gonna move into this next segment. I'm gonna
okay,
I'm gonna break down a song from Burns Out Bright. I break down a
okay,
song from Burns Out Bright, and I've got some lyrics written down. If you could explain this.
okay. This is gonna be the worst part for me.
Oh, so I've got from the song Watership Down.
Okay.
The lyrics, they seem very, I don't know how to put it, very sad,
Yeah, that
very,
lines up.
yeah, very like depressing, sad, in your feelings, all that. I wrote
Yeah,
down
totally.
the
Emo.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the starting line, the starting, little part is, well, I'm counting down the days until you say we can talk again, and then try to reason, please don't hang up now. I just need a moment. I've cried my last, I swear, so please hear me out. Could you
Yeah,
explain that a little
brutal.
bit?
It's so embarrassing. So
No, it's all good.
certainly when I was younger, I was not a I was not a person that handled emotion well. I certainly um I like to think I'm better now. But
You are?
I like to think. But it's also been 20 years, so
Yeah.
um it only took me till I was 42 to be able to say I think I'm okay at regulating emotion. Um yeah, I think I was it wasn't it wasn't about a specific actual instance. I think I was just thinking about uh like there was definitely like a breakup um
Yeah,
kind of,
that's what I was
and
thinking.
I put myself I was trying to put myself back in one of those moments. Party truck going by. um but and it was when I was younger, when I was in those situations, I always thought like if I could just talk a little bit more, like if you just give me just a little bit more time, I can turn this whole thing around, if that makes sense.
I know what you mean. Was there any, like, was this just kind of you writing, or was this like a real like feeling inside of your heart?
It was definitely feelings that I had experienced,
Okay.
and I was trying to jazz them up, put a little
Mhm.
poetry to them.
Yeah.
I was always better at thoughts well after the fact, not in the
Okay.
moment.
Yeah. Well, um here, where's this last one here? What is no, oh shoot, what am I looking at? Here we go. Okay. I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna ask you a couple more things, and we'll get it going from there.
Okay.
So I asked this for everybody. What is your message to the world?
Oh wow.
If you're in front of the entire world, what and you have one thing you can say, what's your message for everybody?
Drink
Any
more Ovaltine.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
It's from the movie A Christmas Story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the decoder ring. I don't know. Man, I feel like personally, I've come a long way. Really in the past, since I had um children, I really realized, um, I want them to be better than me, which might be a low bar,
Yeah.
but I realized real fast that you don't just make your kids better, like you have to get better,
Yeah.
because they're gonna do what they see you do.
Mhm.
So you can't just tell them like, hey, don't do what I do, because that's what they're gonna do. Um, so uh, I think my message to the world would be, uh, if people thought more about what they say, we'd all be a lot better off. Just take a moment, I
Think
guess.
first
Like
before you speak. Yeah.
like take a breath. Don't shoot from the hip, because it's really easy to not consider other people's perspectives,
Yeah,
um, which I was never good at, and I like to think I'm getting better. But
of course.
everybody's
Yeah.
got their whole. Every person is a whole universe. They're a whole giant, you know, many seasons long, many episodes. There's so much backstory to every single person that you walk past.
Mhm.
Um, and we don't know. I don't know it, and it's easy to just think you have somebody pegged, and you don't.
Right.
Nobody's that simple. Nobody,
Right.
even somebody you can't stand.
Yeah. So for people my age who are into hardcore and the punk and rock, all that, what
Mm-hmm.
would your message to them be? To somebody who wants to get into it, who's maybe not into it, or for someone who is into it and wants to venture out more, what would your message for them be?
Man, I would say you got to go to shows. You got to
Yep.
go. Um, you got to go to every show you can. And if you're like a diehard metal person, um, go to other shows. Um,
Yeah.
like branch out. Don't just go to metal shows. Definitely go to metal shows, but you know you want to get out there. I'm a guy who really likes to go to metal shows. I don't play them. I don't dress the part. Vorov is the heaviest band I've ever played in, and John writes all of it,
Yeah.
but he doesn't write metal. I don't know how you would describe us. Um, Very Converge esque, I guess. But thank you, Sean. My associate Sean is bringing me a drink. Here, here's a drink. Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
um, but yeah, like there's just worlds of people out there that you might not even know. Like
Yeah.
there's going to be kids that know more about metal than you and don't even look it.
Hmm.
Um, and you're going to meet other bands and other people, and you just got to get out there, like go to shows. Aside from that, I would say do it. Like you got to kind of just jump in. Like the first time you get into a van and drive to a strange town where you know no one, and you're going to get up on a stage and play probably in front of no one, like five people if you're lucky. You just got to do it, and you can't be discouraged by that, because every band started that way. Every band I've ever met, we can all sit around and trade stories about terrible shows that we've played, but you'll come back around to that city, and there'll be more people there, and there'll be a kid who was like, I saw you play 6 months ago and I
Yeah.
loved you. He's like rocking your t-shirt, and it's the coolest feeling. So like you got to get out there and you got to do it.
Yeah,
um
man.
that's what I would say.
Perfect. I'm gonna ask you I'm gonna ask you five quick fire questions before
Okay.
we wrap this up. I'm gonna ask you the question. You just gotta answer as fast as possible.
Okay, I'll
All
try.
right, you
I'm
ready?
ready. Yeah.
Favorite food?
Oh, favorite food. Oh man, macaroni and cheese. Yeah.
Favorite drink?
Like, are we talking like a alcoholic drink?
Anything that you can think of. First thing that comes to your head.
Cheer one.
Okay. Favorite TV show?
The Wire.
Favorite song?
Probably The Pod by Hum.
Okay. And we're gonna finish it off. Favorite vacation spot? That one's a
I gotta
thinker.
go. I gotta go. My home state, Maine, vacation land, baby.
Okay. Yeah, what do you do up there? Go to the beach, mountains? What's up there?
That's the beauty of Maine. It's got it all. You go to Acadia National Park, you got mountains, you got the beach. It's all right there. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. There's beaches are so different up there than they are from anywhere else on the East Coast.
Yeah, man.
Just kind of alien. There's like big rocks coming out. It's not. It's cold. The water's very cold though.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you talking to me. I appreciate you doing this with me. We we're gonna get this out soon. I'll let you know when I get this rolling and we'll go from there.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me
I
on. It's been
appreciate
great.
yes, sir. It's been real. It's been real, sir.
All right.
I
Love you,
appreciate
Owen. Sean
what is
says he
that?
loves you.
I love you, Sean.
I love you, Sean. I love you too, Isaac and Owen.
Right, right, right. Well, I appreciate you talking to me, and this has been great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, man.